bounces, caught, Diggs, sideline, touchdown, unbelievable!
All right, week 2 instant reaction. The Atlanta Falcons just stole a win from the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to get to that and everything else from week 2. But first, if you want these episodes as early as possible, follow Kyro Sports on Spotify. It'd mean a ton if you gave the show a 5-star rating over there. And each episode on Spotify has a unique question of the day in the form of a poll that you can answer. So go check out Kyro Sports on Spotify. There's a link to it in the description. And if you want to know my thoughts live during every NFL game, join the Discord server through the link in the description as well. Myself and other viewers are in there talking about every single game on the Sports Talk channel. So come be a part of the conversation and watch games with me live. Week 2, instant reaction. The last game we talked about was Sunday Night Football of week 1. That was the Detroit Lions defeating the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday Night Football. Last Monday night, the 49ers defeated the Jets, and it was a pretty boring game. Wasn't much to talk about other than Aaron Rodgers finally playing in his first full game with the New York Jets, and as a 40-year-old, he was okay. He was okay. He definitely does not look like prime Aaron Rodgers anymore, but that was about what I was expecting for the first game for the Jets. Kind of getting a feel for it, letting Aaron get comfortable again, and really the biggest thing from that game for me was, and it was the 49ers, so I kind of took it with a grain of salt, but after seeing them in week 2, I was pretty disappointed by the Jets defense, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Other big thing from last Monday night was Jordan Mason filling in for Christian McCaffrey and having a huge night. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is amazing, and when healthy, probably the best running back in the league, but there's still something to be said about scheming and the 49ers, just incredible offensive game plan. And you throw in a solid back there, and he can have huge numbers too. So that was pretty much all we missed from Monday Night Football from last week. Then to open up week 2, the Bills rolled over the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. I started to write notes to talk about this game. Opening up week 2, we opened up week 1 with a full hour show on just the Chiefs versus the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. Was planning on doing the same for the Dolphins and Bills. Started to write notes for the game. The Bills got off to a hot start with an interception and a touchdown right off the bat. And then Tua and the Dolphins would answer with a touchdown drive of their own before turning the ball over again and again while James Cook would run all over the field, scoring 2 touchdowns. Then in the second half, while trying to make up for already throwing 3 interceptions in the game, Tua would suffer a concussion while diving for extra yardage in the red zone and would not return. That's when I decided to not do an episode for Thursday night, as the conversation would be shifting from the football and the teams and how poorly Tua and the Dolphins were playing up to that point. The conversation would be shifting to a much more serious topic, and I didn't feel like covering something so grim that night, so decided not to do an instant reaction to open up week 2 on Thursday night. And I still don't really want to talk about that whole situation. There's an old 40-minute segment on this channel that's probably almost definitely not worth watching, where we discussed Tua's concussions from a couple of years ago. So I don't know. It's horrible. It's really sad. Everyone knows I'm huge on young, promising players. We're going to talk about that a lot this week too, with how some of these rookie quarterbacks and sophomore quarterbacks are doing, and kind of where I stand on all that. So seeing a player like Tua, who had injuries in college but was such an incredible player, still a first-round pick coming into the league, and he's had huge numbers in some spots, but has dealt with injuries again and again, and hoping and thinking that the head injury and concussion stuff was behind him after the horrible controversy surrounding that whole situation from a couple years ago. He was completely healthy last year. Was really hoping that all of this was behind us and behind Tua, and unfortunately, it's back. There's something darkly, I don't want to say the word poetic, because I don't know if that communicates exactly what I'm trying to say, but for lack of a better term, there's something darkly poetic about Damar Hamlin being the one who made the hit on Tua. Hamlin, of course, also from a couple of years ago, is the player who extremely scary situation in a game against the Bengals would essentially die on the field and later, through some miracle, be revived and make a full recovery and now being a starting safety on the Bills. There's something, again, the words coming to my head are like poetic or irony, and both of those don't seem serious enough for like what I'm trying to convey. But something about Damar Hamlin being the one who made this hit on Tua, who's had so many scary and gruesome head injuries, is there's just something eerie about that. But ultimately, I don't really have an opinion on what I think Tua should do. Obviously, the whole conversation right now is in 5 seasons of being in the NFL, he's had 4 serious concussions. Um, one of those, or maybe one more of those, is one that was a concussion but wasn't reported as so. There's some details on that I don't fully know. But the conversation is, should he honestly retire at this point? He just got paid a ton in the offseason. Like I said, he's put up insane numbers during some regular seasons. I believe he's gotten some MVP votes before. He's a player with so much promise. And it also really sucks that up to the point in that game, he was playing so horribly, because there's been questions about Tua and the league. And so the conversation is now, should he honestly just retire for the sake of his long-term health and dealing with all these head injuries? Concussions and CTE is such a hot topic around the sport of football in general these days, particularly the NFL. And we've seen players either confirmed to have CTE or players that we can speculate with a pretty high amount of certainty are suffering from CTE in some capacity. And it's really, really sad to see how negatively that can destroy or just alter someone's life. And Tua, who is such a good soul, if you see him talk in any capacity, he just seems like the nicest guy on the planet. And to see someone like him, who comes across as so good, have to deal with something so horrible and be facing the potential of this horrible, daunting beast in the future of what repeated head injuries can do to someone. It's just a tough situation. I know that if it were me, and when I spell out all that with the head injuries and what it can mean for the future, it makes it more difficult to maintain this mindset. But I feel like if it were me, there's absolutely nothing that could stop me from coming back and playing if I was an NFL player who felt like I had so much more to prove and still had so much potential that I could reach. I don't think there's anything that could stop me from coming back and playing. And the last thing I would want is for someone to try to call me away from my dream. I would never want to encourage someone to walk away from their dream, and I wouldn't want someone to call me away from mine. But there are obviously serious long-term health factors at play here, and the risk of continuing to play could be far too large to ignore. So I trust that Tua will make the best decision for him, and it's my hope and my prayer that he can remain healthy regardless of his choice, whether he continues to play football or decides to move on for the sake of his health. So that's all I really want to say about Tua's situation. Again, it's sad, and I don't like to linger too long on the sad topics because football is something that I love and that makes me happy. So the only other things I'll say about that game is that the Buffalo Bills, are already way better than I expected. And they may be legit. They may still be legit. My favorite of the preseason, storylines of different NFL franchises, little series that we did to kind of revamp this channel, was the Buffalo Bills. And that was reciprocated from the viewers, as that was by far the most popular one that I made. But I really like that video. It talks about basically the Buffalo Bills story from that heartbreaking divisional round Kansas City loss in overtime to today. And that video kind of leaves off with, on paper, with losing players like Stephon Diggs, some stars on defense like Von Miller getting older and pieces leaving. It kind of left the Bills entering this season as a question mark team, where on paper you think the team might be getting worse, but sometimes a shift in expectations, a shift in personnel, and it can spark a team to new life. And at least through 2 weeks, that seems to be the case with the Buffalo Bills. And I almost don't want to say this because, it's so early. Nothing like overreacting to the first week or first 2 weeks of an NFL season. But the way he's playing and the way he's being utilized, and he didn't have to be utilized as much in the Dolphins game, but especially in the Cardinals game. With his usage rate and the way they're winning, could this finally be Josh Allen's MVP year? I'm gonna throw it out there in week 2. Obviously, it's not like the craziest thing in the world. He's been considered to be like a top 2 to 3 quarterback for, at least the last 3 seasons, maybe longer. And there's some speculation of people betting on Josh Allen winning MVP that entire time span. Could this be the year he finally pulls through and does it? He loses his most talented weapon in Stephon Diggs. If they end up having a better season than they've had the last couple of years, and he is the life force and, not soul, obviously, but biggest reason that they're winning these games, if they win their division with the Dolphins now, unfortunately, their season probably being pretty much over. Their backup quarterback that was in there looked rough. I don't know if they're going to bring somebody else in, but with Tua gone for who knows how long, if he comes back, again, who knows what's going to happen there. The Dolphins are probably done. The Patriots, although starting off way better than anyone expected, are not going to be competing in that division. And the Jets have so much to figure out, and I'm not sure that they will. It looks like the Bills are a heavy favorite to win their division. The way they're winning games right now, I think there is a strong case and high likelihood that Josh Allen could finally win his first MVP, and I think that would be long, well-deserved for Josh Allen. So I'm not saying he is my number one hope to win MVP or anything like that, but I would be very happy to see Josh Allen finally get his MVP. For such a great quarterback, that's one of the best players in the franchise history of the Buffalo Bills and has been a top 2 to 3 quarterback for several years. A lot of people have compared like Mahomes and Allen of today to being the Brady and Manning of the past generation. Manning got 5 MVPs and Brady got the Super Bowls. Mahomes is getting the Super Bowls. So if Josh Allen's going to be Manning in this comparison, he's got a lot of MVPs to win. And this year could be the first, but we'll see what happens. Only other thing I have to say from that Bills game is that James Cook is good, dude. That's something I've thought about the Bills for so long, is as good as they have been, as good as Josh Allen is, as good as their weapons have been with, Stephon Diggs and players like Gabe Davis scoring so many touchdowns in big moments. Their quarterback, never in doubt. Their defense was really, really good for a long time. And so far through 2 weeks this season, their defense is playing extremely well. Something they never had, in this era of the Buffalo Bills was a good running game or a good enough running game. They had Devin Singletary for a while, who was just a decent back, but never did anything crazy. James Cook is legit. He has had some big games. He is a touchdown machine in some of these games. I think James Cook is the best running back the Bills have had in a long, long time. And Josh Allen maybe not having to do absolutely everything if you have a decent running game with a guy like James Cook could be huge for the Bills. The Bills are one of those teams right now that I am very, very intrigued by for the rest of the year. They struggled last year, the first half of the season, starting out 6-6. Again, we're only 2 weeks in. It's overreaction time, but 2 weeks in, the Bills look like they can make some noise in the AFC, and I'm here for it. But that was Thursday night, and yesterday was Sunday football. We had, 14 games yesterday. I think 10 in the noon window. And let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Okay, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's start in Arlington, Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys, who had won something like the last 16 of their regular season home games, would lose their second consecutive home game, if you include the playoffs, by getting steamrolled 44-19 by the New Orleans Saints. I'm gonna slow down right here. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna frown. I'm gonna be sad. I'm gonna be upset because I don't want to talk about this game, obviously. But you know what? It's fine. Let's just talk about it. So the Saints were a team completely off my radar in the offseason. I believe last year they were 9-8, I want to say. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to bother checking. I'm pretty sure the Saints were 9-8 last year, maybe 8-9, right around that 500 mark. And they were like, I thought this preseason when I was planning on doing the storylines for every single team, I only ended up making, a few of those, but I was kind of starting to scan through the league, kind of map out maybe where my thoughts were going to go for every single team. And when I got to the New Orleans Saints, I immediately thought, I know absolutely nothing from your offseason. Like I like the Saints enough. They're not like one of my favorite teams, but I've got some friends who are Saints fans, and I usually, if I know someone who likes a team, that'll bump them up in my mind so I can like be happy for, oh, my friend likes this team, so I can kind of pseudo root for them. So the Saints are usually around my like top 7 to 10 bubble of favorite teams. Like I've got my Cowboys, then my wife likes the Seahawks, so I like the Seahawks, and then my entire life, which we're going to talk about this a lot tonight, my like kind of away from the Cowboys. What's my other team that I like? I've always really liked the Atlanta Falcons, so they're my number 3. Anyways, a few more teams that I like. Then usually at the edge of my top 10 favorite teams in the league, between 7 and 10, you could find the New Orleans Saints. But the last few years, they have been kind of a mess. Never like the worst team in the league, but usually in that mid-range, questionable for making the playoffs, but definitely not really going to do anything kind of a team for the last few years. So they've fallen completely off my radar. If you're not a playoff team or you're not, picking one of the top picks in the draft, you can kind of blur between the lines for me. So that's what had happened with the Saints. And I've heard since they've had such a hot start that they did make some important moves in the offseason. But the literal one move I knew the Saints made in the offseason was that they drafted Spencer Rattler at some point in the draft. I never expected him to start, but genuinely, like in my head, the only thing I really thought about the Saints entering this season was, are they like at some point, around Thanksgiving, going to be, a sub 500 team and maybe throw Spencer Rattler in there and see what he can do for a few weeks. Like that was like the only thing in my head thinking the Saints could be this year. And then they came out week 1 against the Carolina Panthers, who are in absolute flames right now. We'll talk about them too. And absolutely eviscerated the Carolina Panthers in week 1. Okay, whatever. Middle of the road, edge of the playoffs team, blew out probably the worst team in the league. Okay, it happens. That's not extremely surprising. Cool. Nice for Derek Carr. Dude's been through a lot in the league, spent so many years on the Raiders, was eventually let go by them. Comes to the Saints. He's been all right. He got to have a really awesome game against the Carolina Panthers. Good for Derek Carr. Happy for him. Either the Dallas Cowboys are as bad as the Carolina Panthers, which I refuse to believe, or the New Orleans Saints might just be legit. They might just be legit. They come into this game against the Dallas Cowboys and scored a touchdown on each of their first 5 drives. 5 for 5 on touchdown drives in the first half. 35 points in the first half. I believe that's only the second time that's happened in Cowboys history that they've allowed 35 points in a half. I could be wrong about that. but I think I saw that it was only the second time in history that that's happened. I don't even know where to begin. Where would I want to begin? Their first drive was it was art. It was literally like art. They came out with an incredible game plan and ran down the field and scored. Cowboys answered with a field goal, and I believe it was the second drive that Derek Carr throws a 70-yard bomb for a touchdown. And we ended up answering with a nice 65, I believe, yard CeeDee Lamb touchdown, which was the peak of my weekend. That CeeDee Lamb touchdown, I was jumping up and down, screaming. I was having a great time with that big CeeDee Lamb touchdown. But we were still losing, and our defense had not shown a thing all day, and they would go on to not show a thing all day. So yeah, the game was pretty much over by halftime. It was 35-16. So, and the Cowboys would open the second half with the ball, so it wasn't going to be completely over, but it was pretty much over by halftime. Before we talk about the Cowboys, I just got to give props to the Saints. Alvin Kamara, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've expected the guy to kind of just fade out of the league, kind of fade into obscurity. Most of these running backs, especially when they're his age or by his age, have, past their prime, wear and tear on their legs. They've slowed down. I've expected the last 3 years for Alvin Kamara to kind of disappear, and he comes out 20 carries, 115 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground with 2 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara with 180 yards and 4 touchdowns on 22 touches. That's a Madden day. That's literally a Madden freaking rookie mode day for Alvin Kamara against the Cowboys defense, which for the last 2 or 3 years especially has been regarded as one of the best, most premier defenses in the league. So I got to give props to the Saints. I believe their new offensive coordinator was the passing game specialist for the 49ers last season. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but everyone that seems to come out of that Kyle Shanahan 49ers coaching tree seems to be an absolute stud when it comes to building an offensive scheme. So, again, I don't know if it's just coincidence, but their new offensive coordinator with 91 points through the first 2 weeks of the season, tied for 4th most in NFL history. That offensive coordinator seems to be a stud. The Saints have the Eagles next week. Who knows what the Eagles are? Honestly, I'm gonna ignore everything that makes me feel bad about football this weekend and just ride this high of that Falcons win. But again, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. That's our big finale. Anyways, so the Saints might just be legit. The Super Bowl, again, it is way too early. The Saints destroyed a horrible team and beat the Cowboys, who no one ever knows what the Cowboys are. So the Saints have a lot yet to prove, I believe. But the Super Bowl this season is in New Orleans, and one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now are the New Orleans Saints. And I believe the New Orleans Saints have one of the most passionate fan bases in the entire league. So if the New Orleans Saints somehow found themselves in the Super Bowl in a year where the Super Bowl was held in New Orleans, all I'm saying is that stadium would be electric, and I would not hate to see something like that. All right. I got all my Saints talk out. Can't say anymore. Can't do it. Too upset. Let's talk about the Cowboys. First thing I have to say, anyone you saw on TV or anywhere, anyone you heard say anything, and listen, I'm talking about Dak. I've been a big Dak doubter in the past. I still doubt Dak in some ways now. I rip into Dak Prescott a lot. Anyone who you have said say anything about how anything negative about that game was because of Dak is just flat out wrong. They either did not watch the game or they so egregiously do not know ball, that they cannot be taken seriously. Dak Prescott was easily the brightest spot for the Dallas Cowboys in that game. On the stat sheet, he finished with 2 interceptions. The first one, and I listened to some podcasts today and some shows and people talking about the game. You're like, oh, Dak threw 2 bad picks. Go watch that first interception. Everyone watching the game live should know this. The receiver slips and falls down on a deep in route and is just chest on the turf while the ball sails over him right into the defender's hand. It was actually a perfectly placed ball from the quarterback. So that first interception is 100%. I believe it's Brooks was the receiver. Jalen Brooks, number 83, I believe is the one who slipped on the route. It's 100% on the receiver. And that was probably the moment the game ended. We were already down 2 scores, maybe more, I believe, at that point, and trying to get a touchdown before halftime and then getting the ball back. I believe we were down 2 scores because if we scored a touchdown on that drive and then opened the second half with a touchdown, the game could have been tied. I believe we were down like 15 points. The game was pretty much over right there because the receiver slipped and fell. That interception is not on Dak Prescott. Anyone who talks about Dak throwing a bad pick in the second quarter in the first half did not watch the game or is just a flat-out hater trying to build a narrative or just does not understand that the receiver falling down makes the pass not on the fault of the quarterback for being intercepted. So that was the first one. The second interception was bad, but the game was long over. The game was long over by the time you threw the second interception. You're down 3 or 4 plus scores and just trying to get your team back in it. So you're throwing whatever at the end of it was already garbage time. And he threw an interception, whatever. Everyone in the building knows you have to pass the ball. You can't run it in a situation like that. So they could have put, unironically, they could have put 8 or 9 players in pass coverage. I don't even know how many they had on that play. You could just fully pass commit because you know what's coming. And he threw a pick trying to get your team back. You have to be as aggressive as possible in that situation. So I do not care about that second pick. Absolutely not on Dak Prescott whatsoever. This is on defense. This great Cowboys defense that people talk about the Cowboys team as a whole this way, which to an extent the offense is this way too, where the Cowboys will beat up on and destroy and wipe the floor with bad teams, non-playoff teams that are worse than them. But the second they have to play a real team, a playoff team, a contending team, they shrivel. To an extent that it can be said that applies to the whole team. But pretty much my entire lifetime, and definitely the last couple seasons, that is mostly the defense. Opening game of last season, 40-0 against the Giants. The Cowboys defense had literally just fantasy football had the biggest fantasy football day ever for a defense with blocking punts and interceptions and fumbles. And last week against the Browns, the defense had an incredible day as well. I don't know. Usually I'm of the opinion that blame needs to be spread out, that it's not all on one person or one group. I don't know who is most at fault for how blatantly the defense was just exposed and shredded and picked apart in that game. Our running defense has never been good. The first time I remember truly being so heated about how bad the Cowboys defense was when we lost the playoff game to the Rams back in 2018, I believe it was, when I'm forgetting his name. I think it was Henderson. And that was the year the Rams would go on to lose in the Super Bowl to the Patriots. I think it was Henderson was his name. Forgive me if I'm forgetting. But he ran all over us in that playoff game. It was just, we can't do anything. They're controlling the entire game, the clock, the time of possession. They're just running it for 5 to 7 yards plus every single time, and we cannot stop it. Completely new defense now. Supposed to be a much better defense, and nothing has changed. Saw it in the playoffs against Green Bay. Saw it against any legit team last season. And saw it yesterday. I talked about Alvin Kamara having 180 yards. Like, it was just after they got up 2 scores. I mean, the receivers, Derek Carr, they didn't have to do anything. Stretch left, stretch right, stretch left, stretch right, stretch left, stretch right. It is sickening how you cannot stop a team that is doing the same thing over and over again. And yet, I think at one point we did maybe overcommit the run, and they ended up ripping off either another touchdown or a big play through the air. And like, that's going to happen. But how can this team, with such a great D-line, and I know our linebackers are kind of questionable. I really like some of our young guys, like Overshown. It's just sickening how we couldn't stop the run, how we got picked apart, how we gave up 5 touchdowns in 5 drives from a team that was expected to be a middle-of-the-road team entering the season. I don't know. I'm kind of getting to a loss of words because I don't even know what to say. Micah had a couple of tackles in that first drive, but his name was pretty much never heard the rest of the game. Like, it makes me think it has to be on coaching. New defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer, who had some pretty good expectations from the majority of the NFL world entering the season, I feel like. But it makes me think it has to be all on coaching. Mike, I think, tweeted after the game, like, it's not all on Zimmer. None of us players played well, like, lay off him, which maybe he's just being a good part of the team and defending, trying to take some of the heat off his coach a little bit. But I don't know, man. I really don't even know what to say. It was embarrassing, obviously. It was embarrassing. But it's what it is. Like, as frustrating as that loss was, I'm not losing sleep over it. Yeah, I've seen some bad Cowboys losses in my day. I've seen much worse ones than that. Like, yes, that was a bad loss, but it's week 2, you know? So what? I've seen some bad Cowboys losses in the biggest moments, so we got smashed from a team that clearly wasn't taken seriously by us in week 2. It sucks. Everyone's going to take the Saints seriously from now on, and we had to be the example that they made. That sucks, but it's week 2. It's whatever. I don't know if I would say we'll be all right, but I've dealt with much worse losses, so it is what it is. I will say, look into the near future for the Cowboys. Next week, we play the Baltimore Ravens, who somehow have found themselves 0-3. They lost to the Chiefs very narrowly in week 1. So be it. No shame there. Somehow dropping your bounce back game to the Las Vegas Raiders, I almost said Oakland Raiders, to the Las Vegas Raiders is inexcusable. I didn't really get to watch much of that game, but how does that happen? Lamar Jackson, since he's been on the Ravens, is something like 2002 against the NFC or whatever. I think the actual number is close to like 20-2 against the NFC. And considering the fact that the Ravens, who are legit Super Bowl contenders, before that Raiders game, I legit would have called the Ravens third best team in the NFL. Maybe second, but probably third. I would have said Chiefs 1, Niners 2, probably Ravens 3. A Super Bowl contender who I would have said was a top 3 team in the league, definitely the biggest contender against the Chiefs in the AFC. The fact that they are 0-2 and Lamar Jackson is as good as he is against the NFC, and the Cowboys defense just got exposed like they did. Obviously, anything is possible. I'm finding it extremely difficult to picture a scenario in which the Cowboys win next week. Maybe with how badly the Ravens are struggling, maybe there's some turmoil in their locker room, some adversity, and the Cowboys, if you block out the last 2 games at AT&T Stadium from your memory, The Cowboys, the last 2 years, are incredible at home. So maybe some of those positive outlooks can come together to make something happen, but it's really difficult for me to picture the Cowboys beating the Ravens. So it's likely that the Cowboys are going to be 1-2, but after that, I think we can rip off 2 or 3 wins in a row. We've got the Giants in week 3, which, what the heck? No, the Giants and the Browns. Oh, well, we have the Ravens in week 3. We have the Giants in week 4, and then the Steelers after that, which the Steelers we're going to talk about in a little bit are much more interesting than I expected, but I still think the Cowboys are good enough to take down the Steelers. And then after that is the Lions, who I want to talk about that game a little bit too. The Lions are obviously Super Bowl hopefuls, but just dropped a game to the Buccaneers, who are a very hot team right now. The Lions are, I think, still holding on to a bit of a grudge from the ending of the Cowboys-Lions game from last season. So I think the Lions really want to beat us. So that game I can kind of see going either way as of right now. So the Cowboys are probably going to end up being 3-3, maybe 4-3, or 3-5 by the time they go on the road to San Francisco. Tough schedule. A tough schedule for sure. Moving on to the rest of the games from week 1. We've already been going for a while. I'm not going to talk super long about any of these other games, I don't believe, before we get to Monday Night Football. Seahawks squeaked out a win in overtime against the New England Patriots. Sucks to lose in overtime if you're the Patriots, but I got to say, after upsetting the Bengals in week 1 and taking the Seahawks to overtime in week 2 just to lose by a field goal, got to hand it to the Patriots. They are so far so much better than people expected. Jacoby Brissett, no interceptions. Again, I didn't really watch it. I kept up with it. Wife's a Seahawks fan, so I keep up with it, but, didn't really watch this game. But kept up with it, saw it was going to overtime, saw that they won. The Seahawks did not have Kenneth Walker playing, who was by far their most used player in week 1, so that probably had something to do with it. Charbonnet didn't have a great day. He did have a touchdown, but only 38 yards on 14 carries. DK Metcalf, who I have in fantasy and didn't play because I thought, what's his name? Oh my gosh. I'm completely blanking on the Patriots corner. It's like Christian Gonzalez has shut down the last however many superstar wide receivers he's played against. I know Gina. I know DK's a beast of a receiver. I expected him to have a small day. Didn't play him in fantasy. Definitely lost. I lost by 10, and DK had 10 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown. So DK had like 30 points almost that I left on the bench as I lost by 10. Tough. But congrats on the win, Seahawks. And Patriots, hold your head high because much, much better than I expected. The Giants and Commanders played in a battle of the NFC least, and neither team is very impressive, but the Commanders would come out with the win on, I believe, a walk-off field goal to win 21-18. And I don't have much to say other than the Giants are really, really bad. And the Commanders aren't very good, but are figuring some stuff out, I guess. I mean, they won. It's the Giants. It was a very close win, very narrow win. All I really have to say is I really, really, really like Jaden Daniels. Had a pretty good day. 23 of 29 passing, 226 yards, and 44 yards on the ground. So Jaden Daniels, really cool player. Obviously, I've talked about, I love that running quarterback style, and Jaden Daniels is definitely that. So very cool player. Sucks that he's in our division, that I'm going to have to root against him for the majority of his games, but definitely cool player who, as a player, I'm a big fan of. The Los Angeles Chargers, 2-0 under Jim Harbaugh, would defeat in handed fashion the Carolina Panthers 26-3. And it was announced today, the day after this loss, that Bryce Young is going to be benched for Andy Dalton. I mean, the Panthers are just terrible. It sucks for Bryce Young. It sucks so much for Bryce Young because I don't think he's a bad player. He is just small and not an extreme athlete and playing on the worst team in the league. And those things just don't mix. I think Bryce Young can be a great player in the NFL. You can let's talk about Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Even to this day, there are Brock Purdy doubters because he's small. He doesn't have a huge arm. People said for a long time, people said you stick any other NFL level quarterback in that system with those weapons like Debo, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle, and they could do just about as good as Brock Purdy has done. I have been a Brock Purdy defender. I think Brock Purdy is a fantastic player, but there are certain archetypes and play styles that work in some systems that don't work in others. A player archetype that does not work for a horrible roster, horrible coaching, and we need you to carry the team is the player archetype of Brock Purdy and Bryce Young. A small, weaker by NFL standards, arm, not a freak athlete quarterback is not the archetype that can work with no weapons and not good coaching. It's just not going to happen. That's when you need the big athletic beast. Like if obviously in general, I would take Anthony Richardson right now over Bryce Young. But if you put Anthony Richardson on the Panthers, again, I think Anthony Richardson is a better player in general. But like a Cam Newton, obviously, it's like the Panthers are needing a player like Cam Newton, huge, athletic, superstar, highlight plays, like can just through sheer athleticism and like physical dominance make things happen. And with that, like on the ground threat can open up other things for the team. Anthony Richardson, similar archetype to like a Cam Newton, massive cannon arm, extreme athlete, super fast, struggles with accuracy. Think about Bryce Young. He doesn't have those physical gifts, and with how under duress he is, with just getting hit left and right and under pressure and no weapons, he is the one thing he had going for him, the like most valuable, polished part of his game coming into the league was supposedly his mental game and his accuracy throwing the ball. Well, in his current situation, I truly don't believe it's mostly his fault. He doesn't look that accurate, and it looks like he's not making good decisions because of all the picks and incompletions, but I don't know. I think the Panthers are just horrible. I do think Andy Dalton just being a veteran is going to come in and make them look a little bit better, but I think the Panthers are just bad. I think Andy Dalton's experience and being a veteran will make him perform a bit better in it, maybe, but I just feel bad for Bryce Young. I don't think his career is over or anything. I don't think he's a certified bust or anything like that, but his quarterback archetype and his situation just don't mix well. And in general, the Carolina Panthers franchise is just in flames. At some point, I think I want to talk about the actual details and full extent of the Carolina Panthers just continued pitfalls. But for now, I'll just say I'm rooting for Bryce Young. Whether it's with the Panthers or not, I hope he can find himself in a situation that can work. I just hate to see a player come in with so much promise. And I say so much promise. It's not like he came in with expectations of like generational talent, like a Caleb Williams or something. But he was the first overall pick and has looked just bad in most all of his first however many games. So, but again, looking bad in what I don't believe is really his fault. Anyway, speaking of Anthony Richardson, he had a horrible day, losing to the Malik Willis-led Green Bay Packers and throwing 3 interceptions in the game. I have not gone and watched this game yet. I saw literally nothing from this game. So I'm not really going to say much about it because I don't have anything to say. I know that the Packers ran it for like almost 200 yards in like the first quarter or something. I know that they ran all over the Colts, and so the Colts defense was bad. And obviously Anthony Richardson did not have an accurate day through 3 interceptions. I'm upset that I have not gone and watched this game yet. I'm gonna do that this week, but I want to go and see the game for myself because I need to know how Malik Willis threw 12 of 14 and a touchdown. Okay, it's not like obviously they ran it extremely well. Josh Jacobs 151 yards on the ground. They had other players getting yards on the ground. Malik Willis himself had 41 yards rushing. But I need to know how Malik Willis, even if it wasn't very many throws, threw for 86% completion and a touchdown. Again, I'm not gonna pretend just from the stats that Malik Willis like is back. He's arrived. But their game plan worked, and Malik Willis did exactly what he needed to do. And yes, Anthony Richardson threw it, almost triple the amount of times, but one of them threw for 50% and had 3 interceptions, and the other threw for 86%, no interceptions. So I'm not saying Malik Willis is better than Anthony Richardson, but Malik Willis definitely had a better day than Anthony Richardson. I'll say that. So, huge for the Packers to get a win with Jordan Love out. I don't think most people expected the Packers to win that game, but they did. I think a lot of credit has to go to Matt LaFleur and the coaching, and the Packers running game was ready to play. Wow. Sucks for the Colts, who I think the Colts looked really good and promising in week 1 against one of the better teams in the NFL right now in the Houston Texans. And they needed to get a statement win against a weakened Green Bay Packers team. And their defense got ran through, and their offense could not get going and keep the ball. So again, I haven't seen that game. Want to see how it played out. Want to see actually how the quarterbacks looked. But that was Colts and Packers. I have nothing to say about the Browns and Jaguars other than very surprised after week 1 and after new allegations against Deshaun Watson that they came out and won, and just extremely disappointed in the Jaguars. And again, I didn't see anything from this game either. I was watching the Cowboys get demolished by the Saints, so a lot of the 12 o'clock games I didn't see much of. I did see a bit of some of them. I don't know the full situation in Jacksonville. I just know I see Trevor Lawrence throw 14 of 30, under 50% and no touchdowns. I'm just sad. This is going to be a common theme of this week. There's 2 themes of this week. Upsets / disappointing teams that were supposed to be good. That's theme 1. And theme 2 is young quarterback struggles. Young quarterbacks struggling big time. Trevor Lawrence, I don't even know if he counts as a young quarterback anymore. This is his 4th season in the NFL. He's already got his ginormous payday, his 2nd contract. I don't even know if I can call Trevor Lawrence a young quarterback anymore. I'm getting old. Can't believe Trevor Lawrence has been in the NFL for this is his 4th season. Is that real? Oh my gosh. Existential crisis happening right now. But I don't know if he's just getting no help from his team, from his offensive scheme. Or if he's just not playing well. I've just been so ready for Trevor Lawrence to finally break out and become that, top 5 to 10 caliber quarterback in the NFL. And he's just not getting there. Like, coming into the league, you would think he could become like a Josh Allen type. Not quite as dynamic of a runner, but tall, huge arm, like just an artist. And the passing game was supposed to be Trevor Lawrence. And he's losing to the Cleveland Browns, led by Deshaun Watson, and being 0-2. The AFC, it's AFC South, right? The AFC South is just the Houston Texans at this point. I mean, you've got the Titans, and you've got the Colts, and you've got the Jaguars. Are they all 3 0-2? Yeah, I believe they are all 0-2. And then you got the Texans, who are a monster football team right now. Anyways, that's Browns and Jags. We're going to fly through these last few before talking about our big games. Jets and Titans. Again, we got to talk about these struggling young quarterbacks. This is not something you're going to hear a lot of people do, so I got to do it real quick. I'm going to defend Will Levis. I know. You've heard people say the last 24 hours, last 48 hours, that Will Levis is the worst quarterback in the league, that he's a bust, that he should not play in the NFL anymore. He has thrown 2 of the worst interceptions, although I don't know if there were interceptions, right? I feel like the one from the Jets game was maybe technically a fumble. Either way, 2 of the worst turnovers probably in NFL history he pulled in back-to-back weeks. In week 1, you've got the whoosh, and followed by this pose that, the meme, the screenshot heard around the internet, and then a very similar type of play in this game against the Jets, which literally lost them the game. It was when I believe they were trying to tie the game up in the fourth quarter. You've got his coach literally yelling at him, "What the F are you doing? What was that?" And it's bad. It's obviously bad. I've heard people say it comes across as literally not just selfish hero ball, but narcissistic football playing, with Will Levis just trying to do way too much. And, you tie that into the muscles, the gun show, his, attitude and the way he comes across. I can see that take, and I'm not saying it's wrong. When I say I want to defend him, and I know there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more than this to being an NFL caliber quarterback. You look at players like Brock Purdy, or just a lot of quarterbacks. You can be just a game manager, not do anything flashy, just make the safe, smart play, and that's often good enough to win games in the NFL. I think Will Levis just tries to do too much. Again, there's the reasons that some people have been saying, and I'm not necessarily saying that they're wrong. They very well could be. He definitely gives off that vibe. But I think he's talented. I think he plays hard and wants to win. And I think just to this point in his young career, he is just trying to do too much that he's not ready to do. I mean, you see players like CJ Stroud last night, or Mahomes, obviously, or Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen at times, making these superstar running around in circles, dodging sacks, throwing it on the run 40 yards down the field, making these incredible plays. Will Levis is not at that level yet. I say as if it's going to happen. Who knows? I'd say right now about 95% plus of people do not think he'll ever be that caliber of quarterback. But you know what I'm saying? He is trying to do things at the level of a quarterback that he has not yet worked his way to be. He is trying to throw out these crazy passes that he's trying to make something out of nothing instead of just taking the sack or throwing the ball away when a play is not there. He's trying to make a play where there's not one, and it's leading to crucial and critical turnovers. The silver lining to me about that, and this is something I don't think a lot of people would say. You look at a player like Trey Lance, this has been talked about a lot. I believe this is the same case for Will Levis, a player who has all these incredible physical tools, but their decision-making is just so poor, or their ability to read an NFL defense at full speed in real time is just not there. Maybe the reaction time isn't something you can teach, but I think the decision-making is something that you can change. I think it is easier to get, and this is why you see, number 1 picks in the draft or top picks in the draft often just be incredible athletes. Yes, they have good minds for the sport in most cases, but their common trait is their physical ability. because you've got these incredible millions of dollars paid coaches that are supposed to be able to teach them the stuff. You take this moldable piece of clay and give him the IQ of the game. I think Will Levis has the physical tools. He has a rocket launcher for an arm. He can run it very well. He is an athlete. And he has got some sweet highlights. Through week 1, before he threw any interceptions or turned the ball over, I think I said in our group chat on the Discord, I think I said something like, Will Levis is awesome, just from seeing him make cool plays. And then he went on to throw 2 games away in back-to-back weeks. I think the decision-making from Will Levis can be potentially, maybe, who knows, fixed. I think he's got the physical tools. I think he really plays hard and wants to win. And I think if you can channel that spirit into a more controlled mindset and more strategic mindset when playing the game, I think Will Levis can still be a very solid quarterback. And I know a lot of people just like to dunk on guys. I know, and I've talked about, I think in the last episode or maybe the episode before, about there's just so much negativity and, torches and pitchforks about any player that plays bad or doesn't prove to be a certain level by a certain point. It's just time to mob them. I hate that. And I know it's what so many people do. And it's just natural. But I mean, rookie quarterbacks, particularly the successful ones, for so many years would sit for 1, 2, 3 years maybe behind veterans before becoming the starting guy. These rookie quarterbacks are starting some by week 1 of their rookie season. Most are starting by halfway through their rookie season. I think you got to give him time. And Will Levis has 2 horrible losses in back-to-back weeks to start this season. Again, maybe he won't. I don't know what Will Levis's mindset is. I don't know what his attitude is. But if it were me, if I came out and had 2 horrible games and made horrible mistakes, particularly 2 key horrible mistakes, 1 in each game, I wouldn't want to be written off and thought, okay, well, he made 2 bad decisions, 2 bad split-second decisions in the span of, 7 or 8 days. He's done. He can't play. Don't let him play again. Sit him, bench him, cut him. He's done. And again, I know he's had other turnovers. I know he's had other bad plays like last season, but he's had some good plays. He's had some good plays too. And that's all I'm trying to say. If we're writing Will Levis off because of 2 bad split-second, heat-of-the-moment decisions when, yes, they were dumb, they were boneheaded, they were stupid. You saw the coach go off about it. Horrible decisions. I'm not defending the plays or the decisions themselves at all. Stupid. But I'm saying I think a young sophomore quarterback can learn and get past and recover from 2 really, really, really bad plays. I think they can. Now, if he does have a horrible attitude, if he's not a good leader, if he's losing the locker room, maybe that's a different story. But a player that's got the physical tools, a player that has proven to have a high ceiling at times, I think that player can overcome some mental errors in his NFL football youth. So that's kind of my thought process on Will Levis and the Titans right now, and really a lot of other quarterbacks. I feel similarly about a player like Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. These young quarterbacks that are struggling, I pretty much feel that way about all of them. I don't think all of them are going to hit. I don't think all of them are definitely the quarterback of the future for their franchises, but I think each of them can come back from their early struggles right now. That's pretty much my stance on all these quarterbacks. That's how I feel about, I think, Bo Nix. That's how I feel about Caleb Williams. We'll talk about him a little bit more. Flying through here, we already talked about Raiders, Ravens, so I'm not going to talk about that one. Rams, Cardinals. Not going to say anything other than I love Kyler Murray, dude. 3 touchdowns, 266 yards passing, 59 yards on the ground. That's Kyler Murray. I know the Rams are beat up. Their top 2 receivers are down. They've got linemen down. I know the Rams are beat up. But this Cardinals team, early lead and really competed with the Bills before losing that one, and then dropped 41 points against the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to wait to let the Cardinals continue to do good things before I start really talking about them. But I love Kyler Murray, and I know people who had completely written Kyler Murray off by last season and had pretty much considered him to be done. Kyler Murray is a freaking athlete. He's freaking talented. Screw everybody who said anything about him playing video games, because that narrative was always dumb. I know the freaking franchise put it in his contract at one point that he couldn't play video games until he'd done his freaking homework and watched film. I know that's bad, but I hated that narrative always. I still think it was stupid and blown way out of proportion, and Kyler Murray deserves his freaking respect. And right now, I'm giving it to him. I love you, Kyler. Freaking sick football player. Freaking dope football player. I love Kyler Murray. That being said, is Baker Mayfield the best quarterback in the league right now? Obviously, I'm joking, but obviously I'm not. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, yes, they had an incredible week 1 against the Washington Commanders, but we're still expected to lose this week against the Detroit Lions. And they would upset Detroit. Jared Goff would throw 2 interceptions. Baker Mayfield, I saw 2. I think he had the rushing touchdown, but the play before, a sick juke. Again, Baker Mayfield's another one of these quarterbacks. Any quarterback that comes in with big expectations and disappoints, just know I'm a huge fan. I think my favorite kind of sports story, even more than a story like Brock Purdy where there's 0 expectations and they come in and they're just a complete underdog, Mr. Irrelevant, and they do incredible. Even more than that, I love the redemption arc sports story where a player has so much potential and so many expectations and falls short or seemingly falls short for so long and is written off and then comes back and proves that they are the player that they always should have been. That's like my favorite sports story. I want to see Bryce Young come back and be a number 1 overall pick caliber player. I want to see Anthony Richardson be this generation's Cam Newton, just a physical beast. I want to see Trevor Lawrence be the, whatever comp you want to give him type of player. Kyler Murray, I love him having a comeback so far. Baker Mayfield, that same lane. One of the players in the league I'm rooting for most right now, easily Baker Mayfield. I've already said that in the past, but dude, I'm so happy to see him having some success. Just so cool. Just so cool. This is a random story. I'm not going to try to ramble too long. This is already by far going to be the longest episode we've done so far, but you know what? I made you wait a little bit longer for this one, so that's okay. A long time ago, probably 5 years ago, I only know this because I get the memory on my Snapchat every year. I had on Madden a franchise team, like fantasy draft franchise team, and Baker Mayfield was my quarterback. This was probably his first or second year in the NFL. Maybe it was more than 5 years ago, however long ago this was. And I have some video on my phone because I took a Snapchat and sent it to somebody from that franchise on Madden, where Baker Mayfield has like this 45-yard run where he jukes out. And again, it's Madden. It's on Hall of Fame though, so Anyways, this is such a stupid story to be telling right now. But Baker Mayfield had like a 45, 50-yard rush juking out this DB. And the way he juked in the game yesterday on that run before the touchdown, was the exact juke animation from that Madden clip that I see every year. I have this clip. I'll try to find it. I'm not going to find it for posting it for this episode. Maybe I'll post it somewhere another time. But I have somewhere in my Snapchat memories a clip of Baker Mayfield on the Seattle Seahawks juking out a dude. And it's the exact same like hard right step into the juke. It's not like a normal Madden juke animation. It's like this hard right step. And it's exactly the hard right step he did in that clip. a stupid, obscure reference that no one cares about. But for me, just a little personal moment for me. I saw the highlight of that juke and immediately like, whoa, I'm in high school again, and I just juked the crap out of the AI with Baker Mayfield on Madden. So, personal moment for me, personal little tidbit I just got to throw out there. 3:00, 3:30 window games. What is the actual term there? The afternoon window. I don't know. For me, the games are usually like 3:25. Steelers Broncos. I'm gonna just talk very brief. Bo Nix struggles. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. The Steelers defense is still elite. And holy moly, I like the Steelers, dude. I gotta say, a guilty pleasure I have. A football guilty pleasure I have is an ugly win. Nothing flashy, grit, grind, inching your way down the field, fighting for every millimeter, field goals, whatever it takes. Great defense, nothing pretty, nothing flashy, but you grind out a win, time of possession, things like that. And Mike Tomlin and the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers know how to get an ugly win. That's for dang certain. And I have a soft spot in my heart for ugly wins. And what did I say about redemption stories for young quarterbacks? Quarterbacks who were drafted high, maybe didn't live up to their hyper potential, having a little bit of a redemption. I know Justin Fields is not the one, carrying the team to these wins, but he has not turned the ball over, and he is 2-0 through the first 2 weeks of the season, and that makes me so freaking happy. So happy for Justin Fields just for that, but I really like this Pittsburgh Steelers style team. Just no flash, all grit and grind, ugly wins, and I love it. Bengals Chiefs. I'm just going to cut to the chase. I say that. I want to build up the history. I'm going to super fast flash history of Chiefs Bengals. For some reason, the Bengals are probably the number one team in the league. You could say maybe has the Chiefs number. At this point, the record is becoming even, but there was a time I believe that Joe Burrow was 3-0 against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in his career. And after the Bengals' horrible, ugly loss to the Patriots in week 1, I don't know how they can turn around and the next week play such a close game against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are coming off 2 Super Bowls and are probably the favorite to win it this year and get their 3rd in a row. I don't know how the Bengals can do that, but they hate the Chiefs, and they wake up and come to play against the Chiefs and totally should have won the game. When I say should have won the game, I do not mean the loss was stolen or the win was stolen from them. I mean the opposite. Cutting to the chase, Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions that were honestly bad. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 3 interceptions through 2 weeks. I think it's the first time I saw a stat, something like it's the first time Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions in a game in like a long time or something like that. Mahomes, was okay week 1 and was okay yesterday, but he's not being Patrick would probably have to, lose like 6 straight games and throw like 13 interceptions and 0 touchdowns in that span for me to like not think he was the number 1 quarterback in the league. Like, I think his track record has just proven so much that it would take a lot for me to drop Patrick Mahomes a single slot in the quarterback rankings. But he has not been dominant the first 2 weeks, that's for sure. I think they play the Falcons next week, which maybe will be interesting. Maybe won't be. Who knows? But Patrick Mahomes has not been the top level of Patrick Mahomes that we've seen in the past. Freaking Travis Kelce is a ghost. I have him in fantasy. I am in tears. 1 catch for 5 yards. Why? Why do you do this to me? Let's talk about the game. I said this was going to be brief. We're going to fly through it. Isaiah Pacheco had a good 90-yard day, and he is now going to miss the next 6 to 8 weeks. That freaking sucks for the Chiefs. The Bengals, Jamar Chase, quiet day. Well, I say quiet day. Quiet day as far as production, not a quiet day as far as presence in Burrowhead Stadium, Burrowhead. Jamar Chase only 4 receptions, 35 yards. Would get very frustrated, very upset, and throw a little bit of a temper tantrum type deal on the sideline late in that game. But all this game came down to was the Chiefs found themselves losing on the final drive into the game, 4th and 16. It is weird. Like, whenever I'm watching my team or any team and I see them have like a 3rd and long on you gotta have it on the final, you gotta have it drive, I just know they're not gonna get it. Oh, it's 3rd and 11. Maybe. Oh, it's 3rd and 16 or 17. Nah, they lost. It's over. When the Chiefs had 4th and 16, genuinely, I was like 50-50. They'll find a way on 4th and 16 somehow to convert. And somehow they did. Another one of those things. I know that's another, maybe the 3rd theme of this episode is the loud vocal narrative that you're probably hearing either on TV or online is, in my opinion, not the correct one. I understand the Chiefs have gotten calls in the past. I understand people hate greatness. People hate the Chiefs. I get it. I get all the annoying things about the Chiefs. I do. To me, a lot of the stuff that people find annoying, that don't bother me as much because I just care about the football. The stuff outside of football doesn't really affect me, whether it's a pop star or whether it's whatever. And although the Chiefs have gotten calls in big spots of games and big spots of big games, I don't think there's any rigging or whatever. I don't. And certainly not in this game for the play that we're going to talk about. On the 4th and 16, Mahomes throws a pass deep to Rashee Rice, falls incomplete, and there's a late flag at the end of the play for pass interference. I will admit, in real time, I did not think it was pass interference. In real time, from the broadcast TV angle, it does not look like an egregious pass interference. And with how late the flag came in, my immediate gut reaction was, no way. And I was going to fully admit, okay, that one was a complete bailout for the Chiefs. I mean, technically it was still a bailout, but you know what I mean. That one was like egregious, like ref handing them the game. That's what I thought, initial gut reaction. But upon the slow-mo replay with some better angles, it's clearly a PI. It's clearly a pass interference. The DB hit him clearly long before the ball was there and like hit him in the back, like in the back of the head, in the back, and Rashee Rice could not get his hands up on the ball. It was the correct call, and Harrison Butker would kick the field goal. The Chiefs win. No, I don't think it was rigged. No, I don't think the refs were handing the Chiefs the game. I think the Bengals, in a high-pressure spot, I think that DB just wanted to make a play, was a bit overzealous, overambitious on getting to the receiver, and hit him early. And that's just how it happens. I will say I'm frustrated in the sense that it sucks that another big game for the Chiefs has to end with a controversial call like that. Again, the call is clear. It's the correct call. It's undebatable that the penalty happened and that the correct call was made. But it is exhausting that seemingly not every, but so many big Chiefs games have to end with some kind of call. I'm so sick and tired of that. So if teams could stop committing penalties against the Chiefs in big moments, that would be great. So I don't have to listen to this freaking obnoxious narrative about the Chiefs and the refs every single time the Chiefs win a big game. Oh my gosh. The last thing I was going to say about the Chiefs and Bengals game was that a common take I keep seeing that I've seen a lot is that regardless of if the call was correct or not, regardless of if the pass interference was correct or not, it is undoubtedly that the Chiefs are the luckiest team in the NFL. The Chiefs are the luckiest team. Whether the call was right or not, even if the call was right, it's still so lucky that happened. Yes, it was lucky. Yes, that play was lucky. 4th and 16, you throw up a prayer and you get PI. Yes, that is lucky. But what I will say is that luck favors the prepared. It does. Luck favors the prepared. If you want to say a team's lucky, The best teams can take advantage of any and every opportunity. Yes, that play was lucky, but if you're going to call a team the luckiest team in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes has 4 Super Bowl rings or I guess he technically has 3 right now. Patrick Mahomes has 3 Super Bowl rings because he's lucky. You don't luck your way to 3 Super Bowl championships. You may have lucky moments, and yes, that one was lucky. But other moments that people would just call lucky, I would call a great team seizing an opportunity. Luck favors the prepared. Strike while the iron's hot. Make the most of every given opportunity. That's what the great teams do. That's what the best teams do. So, yes, I think that play was lucky. I think it was lucky that the DB committed that penalty. But luckiest team in the NFL, they just win because of luck. I wouldn't say that. Sunday night football, Bears, Texans. This game, the Texans are legit. They didn't have a great game, honestly. But CJ Stroud is so good. He is one of the best players in the NFL. He is. I haven't talked in video form about my QB rankings at all. Last season, in the Discord, I would every single week post my own personal quarterback power rankings. Super fun discussions. Everyone always agreed with my picks every single time. I was completely accurate and 100% correct about everything that I said about every quarterback, and everyone just agreed with me. It was beautiful. If anyone tells you differently, don't listen. Anyways, but CJ Stroud is very high on my quarterback power rankings, and he's just incredible. I'm giving him his props now. He's not going to be the main thing I talk about from this game, but CJ Stroud is incredible. There was that one highlight that I think a lot of people have seen by now where, just one of those plays, one of those incredible modern day quarterback plays, scrambling around, running away while being chased, on the run, throws it way downfield, perfect accuracy. CJ Stroud is just an incredible and special player. I'm becoming a big CJ Stroud fan. And the rest of that team has some dogs too. Nico Collins, huge day. 8 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown. Let's talk about the Bears. Let's talk about Caleb Williams. Obviously, people are dunking on him. People don't like. I'm not gonna give. This is not. I just want to preface. This is not me giving Caleb Williams the great title or the greatness title, but kind of in line with like the Chiefs and Mahomes. There's a lot of people out there that just hate greatness, and Caleb Williams has not reached greatness, but he has reached hype. People hate greatness, and people hate what they view as overhype. Caleb Williams was coming in the league being tagged as maybe the next Mahomes, as a generational talent, as one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in however long. That's a lot of expectations to put on a player. A player going to the Chicago Bears. On paper, the Chicago Bears brought in so much talent and so many weapons and so much help for Caleb Williams that a lot of people, many people, most people maybe expect them to look a lot better than they have through 2 weeks. Caleb Williams has not played great. His escapability, he's not usually fully escaping, but he will usually dodge 2 or 3 tackles before getting sacked. And you can see that elusiveness and that improvisational talent that he was drafted for. It is still there. Where he is struggling a lot is not to the extent of Will Levis, but in that same vein, trying to do too much at times. And whether it's because he's rattled from taking such a beating and getting hit so much, or what, his accuracy in some gimme moments or some it's the NFL, you got to hit this throw moments is not there. Caleb Williams was sacked 7 times last night. 7 times on Sunday Night Football, Caleb Williams was sacked. Taking a beating. Somehow, with how poorly the Bears played all game, somehow, at the end of the game, Caleb Williams found himself with less than 2 minutes, ball in his hands, maybe a chance to go win the game. And I think he got sacked on back-to-back plays. but the first sack was brutal. Like, homeboy was standing still and got speared. And the angle on the TV broadcast was like, you could see the like line open up, and it was like the defender, I don't remember who made the sack. I wish I remembered the player's name. I'd say it right now. But he's like back, like you can just see it open up and his back to the camera, and Caleb Williams just standing there not seeing him and just speared, like hard hit. And Caleb Williams was just taking hard hits the whole game. And he was kind of getting beat up in week 1 too. I saw some joke that was like something like Caleb Williams is just Bryce Young with painted nails or something like that. Just silly stuff. Caleb Williams has played 2 NFL games. He has not played a great 2 NFL games. He was much better in the first half of this game than he's looked at all in week 1 or at all the second half of this game. But even with weapons, I know Keenan Allen was out, but he dropped a touchdown in week 1. Even with weapons, something about this Bears organization, I don't know if their coach still needs to figure it out, but they just cannot get any kind of inspired offensive scheme in place. I think Caleb Williams has so much time left. Obviously, like he's not going to be benched or, it's 2 games. But it's hard to say. It's not the same as Bryce Young in any sense. Caleb Williams has way more weapons. But I'm watching that game, and there was that one, the worst one, the most egregious one was DJ Moore getting open on like a little comeback route or out route late in the game, big spot, and Caleb just throws it in the dirt, like not even close to catchable. And DJ Moore gets pissed. You could see his body language, taking his helmet off, storming off on the sidelines, like pissed. You can tell. It could be bad if the Bears players start to lose faith in Caleb. Kind of this again. I'm drawing some parallels with him and Bryce Young and him and Will Levis because I think all these young quarterbacks have a lot of parallels and similarities in their situations, even with some specific and niche differences. But I think what's most important right now is for Caleb Williams to stay healthy, for Caleb Williams to maintain the locker room. If all of his teammates think he sucks and he's trash and the Bears can't do anything with him and he loses the locker room, if DJ Moore, it's more than just, frustration in the moment. If he's like upset about Caleb being his quarterback because he doesn't think he's good enough, whatever. If the Bears can avoid that, I still think they can be fine. The Texans are just a good team, man. The Titans aren't. The Titans defense is pretty good, but the Titans aren't a good team. But the Texans are good, and the Texans defense is good. And I just said, the Titans defense has played well. So Caleb Williams has not had the easiest first 2 defenses to play against in his first 2 games. When you come into the league with so much hype, I don't think Caleb put all the hype on himself, but he definitely spoke with a lot of confidence, saying things to the Bears punter, like you're not going to be seeing the field much because he's a punter, and the Bears aren't going to be punting. Saying things like he doesn't feel pressure, he never feels nervous. Yes, you want your quarterback to be confident, but acting like coming. I don't know if this is exactly what Caleb Williams was doing, but it definitely came across this way to a lot of people, acting like coming in the NFL, you were the hottest, thing in town in college, acting like coming in the NFL is going to be easy or it's not daunting in any way. These dudes are built different over in the NFL, and you come in talking like that, you have a target on your back. And you have a target on your back on primetime national television on Sunday night. Sometimes some Texans are going to come and spear you 7 times. And you're going to look rough. You're going to get rattled. You're going to miss some throws. You're going to try to do too much sometimes. You're going to throw some picks. I think Caleb Williams will be fine. I think he's got time to figure it out. I think the Bears have time to figure it out. Again, it's hard to know sometimes. Is Caleb Williams just like holding on to the ball too long? Is he trying to do too much? But it appears to the naked eye to me that his offensive line is not doing him any favors. And they're going to need to. But I think the most concerning thing about Caleb Williams to me is not hitting the easy ones, not hitting the what should be the gimme throws, the 100%er throws. Uh, and I think that was kind of some concern going into his career, his NFL career, was that he can make these flashy highlight plays, which he can make in college up to this point in the NFL, don't seem to be working as well. He can make these flashy improvisational highlight plays, but he struggles with some of the routine game manager type gimme plays. And I think that is probably my biggest concern with Caleb Williams is him not. I was hoping he would come into the season with his improvisational abilities as like his back pocket move. But I was really hoping he would come in and the Bears would have some kind of solid game plan and he would, go through his reads and, hit his guy in the flat, hit his out route, hit his slant, hit his quick short throws, his quick and easy reads. I was hoping they would come in. And again, I don't know if this is all on the Bears coaching staff or if it's on Caleb. I was hoping to see Caleb Williams come in with that. And then when those plays break down, then put on the cape and bust out the spinning around, running around moves. But it kind of seems like he's not too great at the routine, short, easy stuff. And every single snap, almost a couple seconds go by, either nothing's there or he doesn't see anything that he wants to be there, and now he's going to run around and it's not working out. I don't know exactly what the answer is there, but I think the most concerning thing to me about Caleb Williams so far is that. But finally, all I've wanted to talk about this whole night, we're at almost an hour and a half into this episode, and we're going to wrap it up here with what made this weekend of football worth it. It's a tough weekend to be a Cowboys fan, but man, it was a good Monday night to be a Cowboys fan as the Philadelphia Eagles would choke away a game in the final minutes to the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have always been my little, feel good cupcake team on the side. I'm a Cowboys fan, but if I wasn't a Cowboys fan, if I, didn't have a family of Cowboys fans, didn't have all these reasons to be a Cowboys fan, if I wasn't so loyal to the Cowboys, if I just, randomly woke up and I didn't know football, I didn't know anyone about football, who would be my team? It'd be the Falcons. So the Falcons are always kind of like my bench team that I'm a fan of. And them Falcons went out on Monday Night Football. Kirko Cousins steals a victory against the Philadelphia Eagles. This whole game just felt like a classic Eagles game. I watched a lot of Eagles games in my day, unfortunately. And I really do. I hate it that it's on the Eagles, but I love the way the Eagles play football. I love their strong running game. I love their clock management. That's like the most frustrating team for rooting against the Eagles is they are most of the time elite at clock management. They will bust out the 8-minute drive when they've got a lead in the second half. They've got the tush push that makes short yardage situations most of the time, guaranteed. Again, not as much without Jason Kelce. But I was waiting on a Jalen Hurts turnover with how sloppy he looked taking care of the ball in week 1. Again, it was in Brazil and on a weird field and lots of variables going on there. But Jalen Hurts was protecting the ball the entire game. And the Eagles were in prime position to win it. I want to know, because ESPN does percent chance to win. I want to know before the third down on the Eagles' second to last drive, what the percent chance was if the Eagles were going to win. Because they had to have been 96% or something like that. I'm just guessing. And then on third down, I was on a call with my brothers during the end of this game. And the Eagles called a timeout before this third down play. They're in the red zone. They're on the 10-yard line. And I said something like, come on, Jalen, throw me a pick or something. And my brother on the call was like, there's no way they're going to throw the ball. Like, they'd be stupid to throw the ball. They call a timeout, and I'm like, yeah, I know. They call a timeout. They come out on third down, and they play action. And my first thought is, oh, they are stupid enough to throw the ball. But my second thought was, crap, the Falcons probably just ran commit. They're going to get the first down here in the game because the Falcons are out of timeouts. Play action, rollout, wide open flat route to Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley, incredible football player. 95 yards on the ground today. Incredible athlete, football player. I think Saquon Barkley right now today is like top 3, maybe, running back in the NFL. He's incredible. But homeboy, apparently, I just heard this stat tonight, has like the most drops of any running back over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And wide open, all he has to do is catch the ball and turn upfield like 2 yards, and the Eagles win. And Saquon drops the ball. And the Eagles don't chew 40 more seconds off the clock, which they would have done even if Saquon caught it and didn't get the first down. They would have chewed 40 seconds off the clock. They kick the field goal to go up 6. And Kirk Cousins, primetime Kirk. Listen, I was rough on Kirk last week. He was bad against the Steelers. I said Kirk Cousins has to be better. Maybe Kirk Cousins was overhyped. Maybe, the Kirk Cousins thing wasn't the right move. I will fully admit I was rough on Kirk last week. Kirk Cousins comes out with 1:40 in the game, no timeouts, and in 2 plays, one like 12 yards or something to Kyle Pitts, and then one bomb. I forget homeboy's name. I think it's the same guy who had the big touchdown earlier in the game. I'm blanking on his name right now. Oh, I can just look at the box score right now. I'll remember. Hold on. Mooney. Darnell Mooney, I believe, was the one who had the big catch on that last drive to get them down to the 11-yard line in 2 plays. Way too fast. Kirk Cousins comes out there and gets them down the field. First one to Kyle Pitts for about 11 or 12. The second one, however many more, like 30, 40 yards. Maybe not that many. 20 or 30 yards maybe to Darnell Mooney on the left sideline. Throws one incompletion into the end zone that had me nervous. I was afraid it was going to be picked. And then Kirk Cousins with 34 seconds or whatever in the game. No timeouts. Down 6. Throws a touchdown to Drake London. If you watch that Falcons preseason storyline, I talked about, can the ball get put in the hand of these young weapons? Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. On the final drive, Kyle Pitts gets a catch. Drake London gets the game-winning touchdown. And Bijan Robinson had 97 yards on the ground in the game, 25 yards receiving. Bijan Robinson had over 120 yards in the game. Kyle Pitts, only 3 catches for 20 yards. That's not a good game, but he had a catch on the final game-winning drive, so he was a part of it. The ball was in his hands during the big last drive. So that's something. And Drake London had the game-winning touchdown. The Falcons, baby. The Falcons. And then the Falcons defense, which they signed like 2 or 3 really solid veterans shortly before the season started. They traded, I believe it was a trade, but they acquired Jesse Bates either last season or the season before. An incredible DV. And so I'm like, crap. I'm still nervous because they scored with 34 seconds left and the Eagles have 2 timeouts. 2 timeouts, 34 seconds. All the weapons on the Eagles team, which they didn't have A.J. Brown tonight, which I think was a factor. Devontae Smith still had a big game, though. A touchdown, 76 yards. I'm nervous. The Eagles get the ball at the 30-yard line. They just need a field goal. They're down 1, so they've only got to get, 30 yards to get in field goal range for a game-winning field goal, and they've got 2 timeouts and 34 seconds, and I'm nervous. I'm like, crap. I still would probably at that point have thought, maybe 50-50 on who's going to win this game. Jalen Hurts comes out, immediately throws a pass for like 13 yards or something. And I'm like, crap. They literally just need like maybe 15 more yards to be in field goal range. It'd be a deep field goal, but definitely a winnable, a makeable kick to win the game. And then I think it was a poor decision. I said we had talked about, Jalen Hurts, the first week. Had some bad turnovers. His decision-making's in question. And again, I'm dancing on the Eagles' grave a little bit, but I am genuinely a fan of the individual players, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, these guys. I do really like the guys as players. I think they're great players. I think they're fantastic. I really like them. And Jalen Hurts, before the end of the game was incredible tonight. It was not his fault that Saquon Barkley dropped that third down. Jalen Hurts had, what's his rushing? 85 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, and 23 of 30 on the night passing. At this point in the game, he was 23 of 29. Jalen Hurts is a superstar quarterback. I said I still believe he is last week, even though he had some turnovers, and I still believe Jalen Hurts is a superstar quarterback. And I do like Jalen Hurts, the person and the player. But I hate the Eagles. And I like the Falcons. And Jalen Hurts, trying to do a bit too much, going deep when he didn't have to. Picked off by Jesse Bates. Ball game. Falcons win. It was hilarious. The Eagles don't have the timeouts. Or they don't have the clock. They have one timeout left. And even though there's like 15 seconds left, they call the timeout on the first kneel down, which is hilarious. It's pretty petty, but it's hilarious. And then, of course, some of the Eagles players, especially on the defense, are getting a little chippy on the last little kneel down because they mad. Because they mad. If you're an Eagles fan, I'm a little bit sorry that I'm dancing on you right now, but I'm just happy, bro. I really like the Falcons. They're my little off to the side. They're my side chick. The Cowboys are like my homegirl, my wife, my ride or die. My for life girl. Those are the Dallas Cowboys. But my little side chick over here off to the side, my little baddie over here off to the side that, can't commit to, definitely can't fully commit. Just, fun time every now and then over here to the side. That's the Atlanta Falcons, baby. And when, it's like your side chick. If we're going to continue this analogy, it's like your side chick pulling up on like your ex that you hate. Dub. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of riffing at this point. I'm happy that the Eagles freaking lost and that the Cowboys are 1-1 and the Eagles are 1-1 and we don't have to suffer already losing our division. It's 1-1 Eagles, 1-1 Cowboys, 1-1 Commanders. I don't think Commanders are going to be competing for this division, and 0-2 Giants. Yes, the Cowboys have a rough schedule, and it's going to be a rough week 3 against the Ravens. And in a few weeks, we got the Lions and the Niners back to back. So there could be rough waters ahead for the Cowboys. But when the Eagles lose, it's a stomachable day. The Cowboys got destroyed by the Packers in the playoffs last season. But Baker Mayfield beat the Eagles. Doesn't cancel out, but it makes it a little bit easier of a pill to swallow. A little bit easier to stomach. So as bad as the Cowboys lost yesterday, I can handle it better and I can sleep a little bit better tonight knowing that my side chick, the Atlanta Falcons, stole one off the Eagles. Literally stole one off the Eagles. Shout out Jesse Bates for that last interception. Shout out Kirk Cousins for cooking on that last drive. Shout out to Drake London for scoring the touchdown. Not shout out to Drake London for getting some kind of, I don't know if it's an excessive celebration or unsportsmanlike, something that backed him up 15 to make Young Hoku have to kick a nuke in order to secure that extra point to take the lead. But shout out to the Falcons, man. And shout out to the Eagles. That's going to do it for this week 2 Monday night instant reaction. I've been Kyro. You've been watching Kyro Sports. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you later. And throw up the X.